You'll be able to hear the voices of a lot of people who are witches now, and also hear from people who have benefited from the craft.
The word witch originally means wise one, and this is what people try to aspire to be. They try to learn the wisdom of nature. They try to learn the meaning behind things.
Why do you want to become a witch? Why should anyone want to become a witch? What do you get out of it? When I tell them you get peace and contentment and joy, they can't understand that. They want to know, don't you make money out of it? And I say you don't. Well, you must make money. You make spells to get yourself money. I say you don't. Well, you always make spells to win football pools. I say you never. But you never do that. Why not? They said it's simply witchcraft. We mustn't do it.
Witch. The name is derived from the Anglo-Saxon word wicca, which means wise. Witchcraft simply means the craft of the wise people.
Witchcraft, Wicca, is a religion of paganism. It's the religion that accepts the seasons as being magical.
Witchcraft is the old religion, a religion which existed thousands of years before Christianity. It is a fertility cult. We worship a great life source. Call it a divine creator, if you will.
It is a religion. It's not a game. I've seen people who thought it was a game and how they finish up in this life. Pretty sad. And yeah, they'll make their money and but in the long run, what do they have? Do they have family? Do they have people who truly love them? Do they change people like their shoes every few months? Is it a used thing? If you see a teacher that uses people, stay away from them. They're not teachers.
I'd say to a person who really wanted to know what was the spirit of witchcraft, that they'll learn more by, say, going out on the downs at midnight and listening to the wind in the trees and looking at the full moon. They'll learn more of the spirit of witchcraft, the real spirit of witchcraft in that way, than they will by reading any amount of books.
Ours is the oldest religion in Western Europe, and it's being revived again by ordinary people. People like you and me, all over the country and here in Sheffield. Witchcraft is among us now.
The actual religion of witchcraft is based on the universal religion of paganism, which is at the root of all civilizations. It's a prehistoric religion, and that gives us the sustenance to continue.
The power comes from the gods. It mustn't be misused. You can misuse your power otherwise, but you lose it if you do. So it's as plain as that.
They are right.
Witchcraft is the craft of the wise. It is the religion that accepts the existence of a goddess and a god, and of the goddess and god being polarized equal forces.
Satan isn't involved in this religion in any way.
It's to do really with the animalistic side of man, the fertility, which has been knocked out of so many religions, the sexual, the life-giving, the profound. Rather, the horns represent a sort of animalistic nature, and which is revered because Wicca believes in pleasure, believes in lovemaking, believes in affection and generosity. It's not a sterile
It means that we worship the very source of life itself, the life that is responsible for the whole universe.
To us is an ancient religion. It's pre-Christian. Witchcraft does not worship a devil or a Satan or an evil god or goddess, but we do have a god and a goddess. I guess from a patriarchal point of view, we're a matriarchy, but to us our religion is equal. The goddess empowers women and the god empowers men.
Everyone will look at this in horror and say, my goodness, it's the devil. Why? Because he has horns. He is a hunting god. He was taken from agricultural societies that required and lived by hunting and husbandry of animals, and so the horns became sacred.
This represents the principle of nature, you know, the people look at that and think, hello, he's wearing the devil's horns and so on. But the idea of the devil wearing horns is quite a new one. Throughout the Old Testament, horns are a sign of God-given power. And that's what they were a symbol of. In fact, there is a statue of Moses wearing horns somewhere in the Vatican. And so
we believe in the horned god and in the goddess of the moon. Now, this doesn't mean that we're silly enough to think that the moon in the sky is a goddess. I don't think any educated pagan ever did think like that. But what this means to us is the masculine and feminine powers of nature. They are symbols, magical images, and by means of our imagination, we can make a real contact with these cosmic forces, the forces of nature, the forces of life.
What I tell people, if I'm giving a lecture to people who are new, who really have never thought about paganism at all, I say to them, you know, you may not realize this, but if you go far enough back, all of your ancestors were pagans.
I mean, long ago in these ancient hills, people worshipped goddesses and gods, and maybe in each different village they called the goddess a different name, they called a god a different name. They didn't think they were worshipping different things. They recognized they were worshipping the divine in many different ways.
You see there a beautiful and naked woman invoking towards the skies, towards the moon. Really, the goddess is seen in every woman. She's Mother Nature, and we worship every part of nature.
As you realise, the mother is a much loved figure who also gives much love.
Anti-religious. I think I'm anti-hypocrisy.
I agree with you.
I think if you're a Roman Catholic, be a very good Roman Catholic. If you're a Protestant, be a very good Protestant. And I think if you're a witch, be a good witch. And I think if you're a Church of Satan, change.
Ah. There's a lot of confusion between Satanism and witchcraft. The two terms are usually lumped together as one. Satanism, as it stands, is basically a reversion and perversion of Christian symbolism, whereas witchcraft, or Wicca as we prefer to call it, is a totally separate, autonomous organisation that has its own form of worship, which is not related to Christianity in any way at all.
No, Satanism has absolutely nothing to do with either paganism or with modern witchcraft movement. You can't worship Satan unless you believe in the Christian system of mythology in which you have a Satan and a Christ who are real figures. If you don't believe in Christian religion, it's stupid to worship Satan.
Centuries has taught that there is an external God whom we shall serve. Whereas I think the truth is that God is within, and that the answer to our questions is within. We believe that good and evil are human concepts. The life-giving force is a form of energy, and all energy can be used for good or bad. Electricity can be used to light a room or to kill. Water can be used to sustain life or to drown. And what man does with the energy is what is really meant by free will.
I believe that nature is a very, very good example of how to live. You watch things grow, you see them blossom, you see them bear fruit, you see them die back. This fits in really well with the seasons of the year. And
by linking in with the planetary and seasonal cycles and becoming at one with the planet. So most people involved in witchcraft tend to be ecologically minded. They tend to love animals and also be gregarious and willing to help and serve others.
It's kind of tuning in. I mean, if you look around at what's here, life's bursting through. It wants to speak to us. We're seeing life in abundance. It's the summer solstice.
You kind of feel very much in touch with yourself, perhaps rational or integrated, and it gives you that, and again and again. It also gives you the kind of the communal stuff, a sense of belonging with a group of very like-minded people.
Even if you don't necessarily...
You know, that was in a time where it was accepted that everyone of any given state had to be of the same religion. And the persecution centuries are roughly from the sort of 15th to the 18th. The church was determined to stamp out paganism and our kind of religion, if you like to put it that way, And so they branded it with all sorts of horrible propaganda, including the idea that we worship Satan and so on. And when the persecution died out, this sort of fairy tale image remained.
And it hasn't just happened to us, has it? I mean, it happened to the Jewish people as well.
The killing of Giordano Bruno. And I said back to the Vatican, the letter, if you had been who you were supposed to represent, you never would have murdered in the name of God. We are the only religion that has never murdered in the name of God. We've never had a holy war, because number one, the only thing that wars do is put holes in the human body. We have never murdered people in the name of God. That is something that the craft has an honor in.
Concept that has come through because witchcraft was taken underground. Yes. And when anything becomes secret and goes underground, a mystique is built up about it. And legend is added to it and added to it. And the things that we don't understand or don't even take the trouble to understand are the things we're afraid of.
That's very true. We usually...
And many thousands of people, along with me, intensely, that the word witchcraft should be lumped in with Satanism. I mean, it is just a complete generalization, and any academic in the world would throw it out of court completely. A witch cannot be a Satanist. It is an absolute physical and semantic impossibility.
I'm sorry. One of our basic beliefs is, and it harm none, do what you will. And that none includes yourself and includes the psyche of other people.
But bound up in the religion of witch is also the practice of magic. And magic is a power. It's an abstract power. It's the power of genius and creativity which courses through the universe. It's nothing at all secular. It can be applied by anyone. And magic is the method or the technique whereby you apply that formula.
If we set our minds on a thing, we're going to get it. You know, Paracelsus said that the beginning of all magical operations is determined imagination. And this is what we set out to do. Get a mental picture of the thing we wish to achieve, and in that way concentrate on getting it.
Dabbling in the occult that goes on today scares me. These people think that they're doing something terribly clever and terribly with it, and it's all great fun. And what they don't understand is that they're invoking forces which they can't fathom, and they're making themselves a channel by which those forces can come through into the world.
I maintain that in order to work magic effectively, you have to bring your light and your dark together in order to create that magical spark. That's how sparks are created, positive, negative, together. It won't happen if you're all positive, and it won't happen if you're all negative. You have to have that frisson in the middle.
Is a natural power. It's one that anybody can use. It actually holds you up. Magic is the intensive creative power which gives you thought, gives you reason to be. It's not secular at all. So therefore, the application of it is a question of technique rather than belief. Once you understand that magic does work, you can use it for all facets.